Okay, so we're still talking about what is religion. Alrighty. Oh, before I mention anything, just remember that the quiz is due Friday. There is some leeway in time. It's due by midnight. Actually, specifically, should be due by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. But I do give about 15 minutes after. Try not to push the time. Try to give yourself enough time to complete the quiz, please. Yes. Tomorrow, Friday, yes. And for the dates, look in the syllabus, please. All the dates are in the syllabus. And remember, there is the 19th, which is Monday, yes? There is a paper number 1 coming due. So that should be uploaded to Blackboard. I created maybe you have seen this, but I created a section in Blackboard where you can upload the paper, yes? If you haven't seen it, take a look, but it is in Blackboard. Okay. Continuing on, I call this section towards a definition of religion. Okay, take my eyeglasses off there. See better. All right, do I have to give any? I'm just looking at my notes. I want to see if I have to recap anything or if I can just launch into it. Well, I talked last time about the concept of religion, and actually I was listening to a talk for later when we get into religion and violence. And there's a woman named Karen Campbell who wrote a book. She's written a couple of books, but a book she wrote in regards to religion and violence was called Fields of Blood. And it's a thick book. And she goes through basically her thesis, her subject. What she's trying to argue is that you hear often that this idea that religion is the cause of all sorts of wars and violence. It's like the main cause. And when she actually did research to address that question, to look at it, her conclusion was, first of all, what is religion? Because it's very hard in the ancient world especially, and in ancient cultures, which there are many still with us. India is an ancient culture. There are a lot of tribal cultures still in existence that still follow their traditional ways. And to ask them, like, what is religion would make no sense to them. It wouldn't make sense, but it really wouldn't be part of their worldview, and it would probably not have been part of a lot of people's worldview before the last 200 years. Okay, as we saw with Jonathan Z. Smith, he said that the creation of the concept of religion is a Western creation and it's modern. And I don't disagree with him on that. But I do think that if you ask people, like, what are you doing there? And they say, well, we're worshiping our spirits, our local spirits, the spirits of our tribe or something. Okay, all right, let's create a word for that. Let's call it religion. If you don't want to call it religion, call it something else. But the concept is there. They're doing it because they have something up here which tells them that they're doing religion, that they're worshiping spirits. Hold on, let me just write down before I forget. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. There does seem to be an assumption throughout human history, at least as far back as the evidence goes for humans, and they keep pushing the dates farther and farther back. But as far back as it goes, there does seem to be something, an assumption throughout human history that there exists realities that go beyond, that push beyond the natural, and by natural, let's say the material, the physical world, okay? You could use the word that was a Melford Spiro used, which was superhuman, which is not a bad word. Just don't confuse it with the Marvel universe, Spider-Man and Superman and all the other everyone's a superhero except me. It's like, I wonder what my superpower is. Oh, nothing. I'm the only guy in the group that has no superpower. But everyone has all these movies. There are all sorts of these mutants and people with superpowers. So that's not the way he's using superhuman here. He means it as something above human. I would prefer to say non-human, only because it feels like it's getting hot in here. Maybe I will open that door back up. Non-human, only because, superhuman makes it seem like it's better than human or it's above human. And if you learn enough religions, that's not always the case. In some religions, yes. Judaism, God is in every which way, beyond description, saying the ultimate reality. It's God-like. It's not really a personal God, it's God-like. That again transcends and includes everything and is beyond description. It is both beyond description. So there are religions and belief systems like that, but there are other religious systems, like say Buddhism, where there are gods, but the gods just exist. They're just part of the natural way of things. There are lower beings, there are humans, and there are gods. Actually, if I remember correctly, there are 6 or 7. Well, I want to say 6, but correct me if I'm wrong. There's 6 levels of being, with the gods being at the higher end, and at the lower end would be animals and ghosts and stuff like that. And right around in the middle would be human beings, okay? And so I would prefer to say non-human. So, there's a belief in there are non-human beings that exist that are not animals, but they're not humans either. There's something else. And there are these realms of existence. There are these, the word realm. I try to come up with something better than the word realm, but area, I guess, could be another word to use for that. Areas of existence that are invisible to us. We experience, we know that they're there, okay? We think we know that they're there, but we don't see them with our physical or material eyes. We have to see them with something else. The mind, the heart, energy, what have you, okay? There's an afterlife, or there's a before life, or there's both. Sometimes you've lived before, and then you're living now, you'll live after. And then your now life will become your previous life, or your afterlife, okay? So there are religions like that. Other religions, there is an afterlife. There's a now life when you're living, and then there's an afterlife. And some religions, no, there's just this life, and that's it. For example, ancient Judaism was like that. There was no real belief in an afterlife. And then there are activities. There are all sorts of things that people do that somehow seem to be superhuman or non-human activities, usually associated with being like possessed by spirits and stuff like that. Okay. So many cultures recognize this fact, I guess is my point. And I saw her out the window, and I hear her coming. Hello, Ms. Rendazzo. It's good to see you. I understand. Noted that during break. Okay. What else we got? Okay. Just to check, they're not here. We'll come later. We'll see. Let me get onto my slide here. Oops. You want to do that? Come on. Yes. Okay. So I just looked some things up to see how do cultures describe something that we might call religion in our modern term. Because it seems to me that many cultures do recognize this fact. I'll start with the Greeks. So I have to, it's out of order in my notes here. I should start with the Romans first, but that's okay. Start with the Greeks. Hello, Miss Campbell? Okay. The Greeks Well, they just called it theos in Greek, which means the divine. This word theos, or godlike, would be another way of putting it into English. Theos comes from a Greek word, which you probably know already. You've come across it, this word theos, which means God in English. Okay? Theos, God. So atheism means not believing in God. Theos, no God. Theology is the study of God. Okay, so theos. Now notice that there is an extra letter there. There's an I, or in Greek it's an iota, or iota. So it's not the word God, but it is God-like. It's an adjective. So the God-like things, the things that you do in relation to the gods and the goddesses, the divine spirits, that's what they would speak of. That was their term. And it was more of a descriptive term, notice. It wasn't a conceptual term like religion is now. It was more of a descriptive term. The godly things that you do. Things you do in relation to the gods. Theos. These are connected to the divinities. Another word saying it. A more proper term for religion. Actually, do you want me to wait a second so you get situated, or you're okay? Yeah, I know. I just didn't want you to miss anything. I should have thought of that. I guess we could say a proper word that comes somewhat close to having a concept of religion would be this word, threskeia. Threskeia. Okay, worship or devotion. And you'll also see another word commonly used with the same meaning of worship or devotion, but I don't have it on the PowerPoint, but I'll write it on the board. Give me something to do. Burn those calories. Eusebeia. Eusebeia. Or you can say Eusebeia. Eusebeia. So you might want to note that down. Threskeia, but also Eusebeia, which means it's a combination of two words here. Which means good. This prefix means good, and then sebeia can mean honor, worship, stuff like that. Usually it means worship as an adoration of a god. So giving good adoration, good worship to something. So threskeia comes close. Worship or devotion. This is the thing that you properly give to the gods. You give them the respect that is due them as gods. They are gods and goddesses. I am not. Hence, I owe something to them. Because the gods usually have some function, especially in a lot of religions. The gods have some function in keeping the universe in order, keeping it going, maintaining it to some extent. And so it's almost like paying your taxes to the government for plowing the snow during winter. You have to kind of give back to the gods because they give to you. They make the rain to fall so that your crops will grow, so you'll have food. They make your females fertile so that you have more of you, more human beings or more animals or whatever. All these things, and so you give those things back to the gods. Threskeia. Okay, you're giving them proper devotion. Notice that I am I haven't mentioned it, but if you've done the reading, this might sound familiar of giving the gods their due. Because I took two of the readings. I know the reading from this man, Thomas Aquinas, is rather difficult. But he's, if you just go with it, just go with the reading. If not the reading here is Question on Religion. Just go with the reading. I know it's sometimes written in hard language, but try to follow, just get his train of thought of what he's trying to argue about what religion is. I give you a Christian example there, and to kind of help explain Aquinas, I give another reading from these two guys, McHugh and Callan, who make it, I think, clearer what this man Aquinas is trying to say. And note that I did send out another reading called What is Religion from a Textbook. So do that reading, please. That's an extra reading. I sent it out as an email, as an attachment. And it's on Blackboard, too, so you can find it there. And that's just from a run-of-the-mill textbook on religious studies. So it'll give you a lot of different points of view. Thomas Aquinas is coming from a very Christian, religious point of view, so I wanted to get that out there so that you get some idea of what a religious person from a certain religion might think religion is. What do they think it is? And also a pre-modern person, because remember, the concept is a modern concept from the West. Thomas is a Westerner. You could say he's an Italian. Okay, he comes from Italy, what we call Italy today. I'll talk about him a little bit. Maybe I'll talk about him a little bit more later. But he's writing from about 800 years ago, and yet he's got a whole question here about what is religion. So Jonathan Z. Smith is not. I disagree with him. People were thinking about this question a long time ago, before the 1700s or 1800s. So Thrace. When we go out from Greece, we talk about places like India, a place like India, the Indian subcontinent, and I should get a map here. Let's minimize this for the moment a little bit, just so we can see where things are. Well, it's my email, but I'm not scandalized by that. You're not going to see anything weird in it that would worry me. What I want is this. Google Maps. Here's our beautiful New Jersey. And go out into our world. Okay, so it's talking about Thrace and the Greeks, and here's Greece over here in Europe. Let's see, here's Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and here's the country of Greece. And if we go east, we will see this large, I wonder if you could call it almost like a peninsula, but anyways, this large area of land which is called India. Okay, and in India, the word they commonly used was dharma. Get back to this. Which was a very and is a very elastic word with a lot of meanings. Okay? They talk about dharma, a very broad term. And it has a basic sense of morality. I have that on the PowerPoint. Now I do need my eyeglasses. You can see the basic meaning here that I give is that which supports or establishes. So the basic idea of dharma is that it is a foundation. It's the foundation of everything. But in general, it refers to moral activity, virtuous activity, to duty, obligation. I forgot about that. That idea of giving what is due to someone. You have an obligation. So in the case of the gods, your dharma is to give them the proper respect. That was the reason I was mentioning before about Thomas Aquinas in the reading, because he talks about, from his point of view, religion is the fulfillment of the virtue of justice. And with justice, justice is a virtue by which you give to someone the respect that is due them. So from human to human, okay, I give you what is due to you. I give you the proper grade at the end of the course. That's justice. I don't give you a better grade than you deserve, but I don't give you a less grade. I give you the grade that you earned. That's justice. In relation to the gods, worship. They deserve worship. And so Aquinas treats of that. So it's a virtue. But we find the same idea here with dharma, that you have an obligation. And usually that obligation is turned towards the spirits, to the gods and the goddesses. And, interestingly enough, which makes Hinduism a really fascinating religion, the demons, the bad gods, because there are good gods and bad gods in Hinduism. So yeah, it's the right conduct. Dharma is right conduct in your life. And dharma means generally that you follow the duties of your standing, of your position in life, and your position in the community. So there's a positioning, there's a class system. There are people who are high up in the community, and so they have, you could say, a lot of dharma, a lot of things to do. They have a lot of obligations to the community. There are people who might be lower in the community, and their dharma is very simple. But you have to follow it, and follow it as perfectly as possible. So for example, just to give you some example, in Hindu society, you have people whose dharma is street sweeping. Right? And this is not an example I'm making up. Okay, that's their jati, that's their class. Although technically today in Indian law, there is no class system anymore, but there kind of still is. But it's been around for thousands and thousands of years, so it's not going to disappear overnight. But yeah, you have people who now we think of it in terms of our culture of, oh, that's just, that's the Smith family. They've always owned that bakery, and Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith had the bakery, and then their sons and daughters joined the business, and they're bakers too, and their children, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it doesn't happen so much today, but in the past, you had Smith and Sons. I never seem to see Smith and Daughters, but whatever. That's just the way I guess the culture was. But meaning that Smith and his family run this business, okay? So we do have that idea, even though it's not as common today. But in India, it sometimes is, where you have, oh, that's the family of street sweepers, okay? Those are the people who are farmers. This is the family that works as diamond cutters or something like that. And then, of course, you have families that are warriors or rulers and stuff like that. But that is their dharma to be that. That is their moral duty, their obligation. That is the virtue of their existence. And they should be the best at it that they can be. In fact, from the Hindu perspective, the Indian perspective, it is wrong for you to try to get the dharma of another. If your dharma is to be a poor person, well, you shouldn't try to be a billionaire, at least not in this life, because your dharma is kind of set for you in your life. It is the path you're supposed to walk. So you have that is your duty of your standing or position. And dharma does not just include your duty as a human being, duty to others. It includes the gods, the demons, the spirits, especially in the right performance of ritual in regards to them. You have to properly, again, think of the idea of justice in Thomas Aquinas. They have to be properly worshipped, exactly worshipped. And if you screw up the ceremony, the dharma of the ceremony, then the god might be displeased. I don't want to say angry, but displeased, not favorable to you. And something bad might happen. Or something good that you wanted to happen might not happen. On the other hand, you can perform the dharma of a religious ritual so perfectly that then the god owes you something. They call this a boon. We use this in English as well. We talk about, we use this word boon in English as well, in the sense of a favor, you can grant someone a boon. Someone asked me for a favor. If you want to be, I guess, it sounds a little pretentious to me, but I'm a pretentious man. So, I might say, I grant you this boon, Miss Marquez, if you're asking me if you want to leave early. No, anyway, I'm just kidding. But a boon where you can perform the dharma of worshiping a god or goddess so perfectly that the god will then grant something. This makes for all sorts of interesting stories in Hindu mythology of demons doing this and tricking. Usually it's the god Brahma. They trick the gods into giving them these boons where like the demon becomes like all powerful and no one knows what to do because the demon's like destroying the planet and destroying reality, and the gods don't have to come up with a solution because they gave the boon. The demon earned it from the dharma that he performed or she performed. Anyways, so the right performance of religious ritual, worshiping the gods, can be also dharma and is called dharma, the order, the proper order. Then, in my view, it becomes religious. Then we're getting beyond more mere cultural meaning, where dharma can simply mean morality or something underpinning the cosmos. Here, when you get to ritual related to spiritual beings, like E.B. Tyler said, this right, especially the right and correct performance of the ritual, here is where dharma is starting to, I think, have properly religious content, and could be translated and is translated as religion. Oh, the picture there you see a man who is honoring a cow, which is all dressed up for, I guess, some holiday or some celebration, but he's performing dharma. Why? Because he's giving the cow its due as another creature, but also as a sacred creature. Cows are considered sacred. I forget, I'd have to look and see what myth explains it, because cows were not always treated as sacred creatures in Indian society. And some people think it was with the coming of Islam into northern India. And of course, Muslims ate meat. They ate meat. And there's the idea that there was a reaction against that to show that they were different from the Muslims. Hindus decided, we won't eat meat anymore. They'll eat, if you've gone to an Indian restaurant, they'll eat lamb. You can get lamb at an Indian restaurant and chicken and stuff like that. But you're not going to get beef. Whereas if you go to a halal restaurant, Islam, you'll get all the beef that you want, baby. In addition to lamb and chicken and all sorts of stuff. But not pork, okay? And generally not a lot of pork in Indian cuisine as well. But, so I'd have to look up and see if there was a particular mythology created about why the cow is what god it might be associated with. I'm sure it's associated with some god, I just don't recall. Anyways, dharma. The next culture is East Asia, what we can call East Asia, which includes a lot of different countries and cultures, not all the same. Just because I say East Asia does not mean they're all the same. Or even India. I mean, India is a very diverse country as well. What unites India is that it's India. Okay, but within India you find a lot of very different religious beliefs, which all kind of come under this umbrella term of Hinduism. And the term Hindu just means India in Sanskrit. It doesn't necessarily mean religion, the religion. So East Asia generally, and East Asia includes from Japan to the Koreas, or I should say Korea, to China, and also these countries, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, places like that. Okay. This concept of the Tao, which again is a very, very broad concept, but it appears in all these cultures, this idea from China, as I said, from China to Japan to Korea. It's spelled Tao, pronounced Tao, but you'll also see it written with a T. So I'll bring up the PowerPoint again. Yeah, I gotta remove those sounds. They're starting to annoy me. Yeah, there's a different writing, an older writing system for translating or transcribing Chinese characters, because of course Chinese doesn't use an alphabet. It uses pictographs and ideograms, basically. In some cases they're based on pictures, but other cases they're based simply on conceptual ideas that are symbolized in various writing. But it's not an alphabet like our alphabet that we have. So to make these images understandable, we have to transcribe it into English, okay, English letters, into our alphabet, I should say. not really English letters, but our alphabet, you know what I mean. And so an older system, this D was written as a T, so I just put that on the PowerPoint just in case you come across it and see it spelled that way and think, oh, is it misspelled or is it a different thing? No, the T in the Wade-Giles system should actually be pronounced like a D. It should be pronounced Dow. So there's no difference in pronunciation, Dow and Dow. However, I will say Taoism just because that's how I grew up saying it, for the religion or the system that is based on this idea of Tao, which is a Chinese word. Tao. Tao in Chinese also has a broad range of meaning. It means its basic meaning is a way or a path, a roadway. Okay, and a lot of terminology is like that. You know, the old terminology usually has a very physical, material meaning, and then it gets conceptualized into other things. So we're talking here like a road or a pathway, but as it gets conceptualized, the Tao becomes principle. It is now the road, like the road of life or path in life that you were following. So it becomes the idea of a principle, a teaching, a guide path for how to exist, how to live your life. And specifically, Tao is the way that the principle or the path, the road that humans are to follow in their behavior towards each other, which we call ethics, but also towards the gods and the spirits, which are just assumed to exist. Okay, these things are not proven, they're just assumed to exist. And so they, just like I have to treat you in a certain way, I have to treat the gods and the spirits in a certain way as well. And it's all Tao. If I treat you, but I don't treat the gods and spirits, or if I just treat the gods and spirits, but I don't treat other human beings as I'm supposed to, then the Tao is off. It's becoming distorted. It's becoming imbalanced, you could say. All right, it's out of harmony with itself. Everybody has to be given his or her or its due. Ooh. Religion is the virtue of justice, yes? We see I think we're seeing a similar thing in these different cultures and civilizations, similar idea. And Tao, like Dharma is like the foundation of the cosmos and of the universe. It makes everything work. Tao is the same thing. Tao is the way, also the way that that nature, the cosmos, the universe is supposed to work, is intended to work. It's just the way things are. No pun intended, but the Tao, it's the Tao of things. It's the way things are. The Tao. And you want to be in harmony with that. So you see that kind of idea of yin and yang, polar opposites in a lot of East Asian cultures, that you don't want one to be more or one to be less. You want them to be in harmony together, okay? They're like two sides of the same coin, but they're the same coin. Right? So the Tao. And now we get to our friend religio, which is where our Western word religion comes from. And this picture is nothing in particular. It's of one of the Roman emperors, Trajan. You can see his name. It's just nothing in particular. I just wanted a picture of an ancient Roman, and one of the ancient Roman emperors sounded good, and here you go. So you got a bust of his head. I don't know what to do about the haircut. That I can't change. But, anyway. Sorry. Well, Trajan's long dead. What's he going to do? File a Title IX thing. What's he going to do? He's dead. Whoops. Unless someone's related to him. And attending FDU. So religio. The Romans spoke of religio, where we get our word religion from. And I wonder if this is in the reading with Aquinas. he does talk about this. The word, where does it come from? I give you these two different things, and there might be a third one, but we have, let me go over here. The first one is from Ray and Lego. The second one is Ray and Lego. That's not a misspelling. And then we have a third one from our old friend Augustine of Hippo, which is a combination of Ray and Enrico. I'll just go through these. Ray means, again, to reread something. If I say reread the reading from Thomas Aquinas, you know what I mean. You can read it again. Now, Lego means to bind together, to tie up, to tie, to bind together. Think of the word we have, link. Link. It's related, okay? Latin and English are part of a huge language family, and so sometimes our words come together and look very much the same or similar. And there's a reason for that, because they derive from an original source language, okay? So German, English, Latin, very different languages, but come from the same, called the Indo-European language family, from languages across the globe, from northern India all the way to Western Europe. Okay? And they all have similarities in their words, to some extent their grammar, etc. So, link, to bind something. Okay? That's one interpretation. I think that's probably right, because it just makes sense that religion binds people together, beliefs, worship practices, community practices as a community involved. It binds you to the spirits and the gods. It links you to them. So I think that probably religo, bind again, or to bind together again, is probably the source of religio. But ultimately, to be honest with you, we don't know. We don't know the source of the word. I mean, no one tells you. You know, no one comes out and says, oh, we're using the word religio, and it's based on this word religo, which means such and such. It just doesn't happen. All right, there weren't any ancient dictionaries with words. Try to do that much later, after the fact, but they're just kind of guessing by that point. So that's why we have three options. But I think that probably religo is probably the best option. There's another one that Aquinas likes and others mentioned if you're reading into this stuff, which is to reread, to read over again. How does that get into religion? I find it hard for my mind to kind of connect reading or reading something to religion. That has to do with the gods and goddesses. But in the sense that maybe you recommit yourself, you are rereading the relationship when you practice religion. You are re-looking at the relationship, and that's what religion kind of does, or at least religious practice does, is that when you reenact certain things from mythology or the lives of the gods, you're rereading them over again. You're kind of maybe physically rereading them, but maybe also mentally rereading them, and that's part of religion, going over the mythologies. Again, to some extent you have to spitball here and guess, because it's basically that I think people choose this one, or people said that relego was the origin because it looks like religion. You know what I'm saying? They're looking for things that look like religio, and then try to come up with an explanation of why it fits. The first one, I think, fits quite well with what religion does for people. Second one, to read again, okay. But then again, I could be wrong. That might be absolutely it, and that's the whole point. It doesn't make any sense. Our friend Augustine of Hippo thought that religio came from the combination of two words, re, again, and elego, which means to choose. And we have this word in English as well. We have choose, which I think is our Germanic word, but we also have elect, which we got from, well, it was taken from Latin and came into English. But to elect someone means to choose them. To choose someone, you can elect them. Okay, they mean exactly the same thing. Elect comes from the Latin elego, so to choose again. And for Augustine, he thinks that kind of like playing off this idea of choice, that we choose the gods again and again when we worship them, when we interact with them, when we choose to interact with them. We're making a choice to believe in them, or a choice, I guess, to do justice to them. But Aquinas does talk about this. What does he say? I'm just curious, at the very beginning of the reading, I'm curious what he says about the re lego one, because that one doesn't. He mentions Augustine. That's where I get Augustine from. Yes, reading. He says it might also come from reads again, re legit, the things which pertain to the worship of God. So that what does that mean? That religion would seem to take its name from reading over those things which belong to divine worship, because we frequently ponder over such things in our hearts. So not necessarily reading physically, but reading as in turning things over about the gods in our hearts and thinking about them. Okay, all right. So religio. What binds people together? Well, as I said before, the spirits, the ancestors, okay, those who have gone before, but especially spirits and ancestors of your family. Okay, that was a big thing for Roman religion. It was the spirit, and you see this in a lot of what we call religions. The family spirits. Are there other spirits of the nation, of the group as a whole? Yes. God bless you. But probably the most basic religion is the spirit of your family, especially your ancestors, those who have died, who are parts of your family but who have died. They've gone to wherever, but they're not really gone. They're around somewhere, but they're gone. And then after your family, you would, of course, have your town, your local town or city, location you're living in. And then above that would be the gods or goddesses of your tribe, your larger group. All right, and all of these were called by the Romans religion. So you had, yes, your personal gods and goddesses, spirits that you worshipped. That was religio for the Romans, that your family worshipped. You might have gods, and certainly you would also have gods and goddesses of your town or city that you came from, which only you might worship. I mean, they might not be the gods and goddesses of the town across the valley, but it's still religio. But then you had the Roman state gods and goddesses. You could say the state-approved gods and goddesses that the emperors would worship on behalf of the people. That's also religio for the Romans. And it binds every group together. It binds the family together. It binds the family to their local community. It binds the local community to the larger tribe. It binds the tribe to the great nation that they're a part of. That's why it seems to make sense to me. So religion exists, I think. I think that actually say yes. These human ideas from the call it Thraiskeia, call it Dharma, Tao, Religio. These are all human ideas. They're human concepts. And whatever the terminology, they describe something. They're describing something. Something that is not just the creation of the modern academy. Okay? So you see things like this. Again, this is from Hinduism. This is a professor. I got his commission many years ago. I forget the name of the dude, somewhere on my computer. But he was a statue of Ganesh, which is the little boy with the elephant's head, god of education and learning. I forget the whole story, but I believe his father was Shiva, the god Shiva, and Shiva got mad at him for some reason one day and cut off the baby's head. So the mother, Parvati, went running around, and I guess all that was available at the time was an elephant. So she took the head off the elephant, put it on the head of her baby, and now you have a little baby god, Ganesh, with his elephant head. Ganesh. Also see his name spelled Ganesha with an A at the end. It's not always pronounced. Okay, so there they are. This is the Hindu priest. This is the professor is talking about. In their culture, the worship, the male priest does not wear a shirt for some reason, or a covering, just a covering on the bottom, but not on the top. I don't know why. They're offering fire to Ganesh. Ganesh is also dressed up with flowers. There's also smearing paste, like it's kind of like a with powdered paste on the head of Ganesh. Okay. I don't think he's voting. I don't think he's trying the slots at Atlantic City. They're doing something there. And as soon as you see the picture, my point is when you see these things, you know that there's something. This is a picture of Pope Francis, who is the current pope. He is ordaining a man, a priest. And so he's laying hands on the man's head, transferring the power of God, of Jesus, into this man to make him a priest. Okay? And you can see, it's a different culture. So Pope Francis is wearing a shirt. One would hope, but he's wearing robes and all sorts of stuff, which is different from the Hindu way of worshiping. But he's enrobed. He's wearing a hat. The Hindu priest doesn't have a hat on, but he's wearing a hat, which a lot of the stuff that Catholic priests wear, at least bishops and stuff, are taken from ancient Roman religion. This pointed hat was a hat that would have been worn by types of Roman priests in ancient Rome. The same thing with the robes that he's wearing. And also there's a little piece of cloth he wears around his neck. You can't really see it, I don't think, because the robe is so long. But you can see it on this man who's becoming a priest. He's got, this piece of cloth that's going over his shoulder, which indicates to me that he's a deacon, not a priest yet. He's being ordained a priest. But you see that and you know that, he's not flipping burgers at Wendy's. Something's going on there. You go outside. You see a bunch of people walking through a grass hoop. It's summertime in Japan. Walking around. All these people. This dude, he's wearing long robes, and he's wearing a tattoo. There's some women here. There's a woman. Other people in suits and ties. Okay, they're not going to business. This is the office. Okay. And you see this big hoop of grass. And the people walk through the hoop of grass in their age. That's how you walk through it. You walk through it, come down a big circle, come back, you walk through it again, you go around in a big circle, just like a figure eight. Alright? And it's a purification ceremony. It's a summertime event in Japan, in the Japanese religion, which is called Shinto. Shinto. Yes, Mr. Dunn. Shinto. The native religion of Japan. However, this word Shinto is not Japanese. It comes from Chinese. Shin Dao. The way of the spirits. Shen has the meaning of spirits. And Tao, we already encountered, we already know, it means a way, pathway, principle, a guide. And it comes in Chinese as Tao. Anyone ever done like Japanese martial arts? Everyone's familiar with that stuff. Karate and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But you have the Japanese martial art of sword fighting. It's called kendo. Again, same idea. Ken is a sword in Japanese, but do comes from the Chinese Dao, the way of sword fighting, the way of the sword, the way of honoring the spirits. Shen Dao, or as it comes from Japanese, Shinto. So, in the Shinto religion, during summertime, you want to purify yourself of any impurities, bad deeds. It happens halfway, it's summertime, so it's about halfway through the year. You want to purify the first half of the year, purify the first half of the year of and so that you can restart, you can reboot the next half of the year. You do this by walking through a hoop of grass. There's probably some mythology behind it, but I don't know that. I'd have to look it up. You see these things. Religion exists. It's not a creation of the modern Western academy. It's there. There is this, and this something that we're seeing bears call it a family resemblance, just like I was talking before about language. Like some languages belong to language families. There are languages that can be very, very different. In fact, people won't understand each other. However, they're from the same language family way back when. Same thing I would say with religions. They have a family resemblance, even though they're very different. They have a network of overlapping similarities that you sometimes see the same kind of ideas, the same kind of practices being taught and the same kind of practices being done. Okay? People talk, act, and think about these superhuman, one might say, or supernatural realities in strikingly similar ways and using strikingly similar forms. So I think it exists. It's an anthropological reality. Anthropological, remember, anthropology comes from the Greek word anthropos, human being. Anthropos. There we go. I wrote it before, but I'll write it again. Omega, long O, anthropos, which means a human. So when I say anthropological, I'm using it in the sense of it's human. It's a human reality. Seems to be. That we in modern times call religion, taking this word religion from Latin, which comes from the ancient Romans. What are some of the things that we can recognize about religion and what it is and what it does? Well, religion, I would say, this is my opinion, is about the ultimate. If I had to boil it down to one word, and there are a lot of words, but and they're all valid in some way, but the ultimate, ulter. The word ultimate comes from Latin ulter, which means the last, that which is last. But it also has the sense of beyond, to be beyond something. Okay, so there's a limit, and then there's the beyond, you could say, the ulter, beyond which there is no beyond. It's the last. It is like a black hole, the event horizon. Okay, religion is dealing with like the event horizon. If you want to put it into astronomical terms, like the event horizon of human existence. The ulter, the thing beyond which there is no beyond. And in terms of our doctrines, but I use that term event horizon literally, because this is, on the back of this PowerPoint slide, this is our event horizon. When you get close enough to a black hole, I mean, black holes are completely warped space. It's where space is ripped apart in a sense and collapses down. The weight, or if you say the mass, whatever is there, is so massive and so heavy. There's open space. Where it goes, who knows? We don't know. We've never sent anything down a black hole yet, and even if we did, we don't know if we get it back, get anything from it. But astronomers call that the event horizon, that you have a plane of space, and this horizon of space collapses into a black hole. It is the beyond which there is no beyond. Apparently not even light can escape from it. Everything is, and that's what's going on in our galaxy. I mean, we have a black hole, a supermassive black hole. And eventually, in several billions, and maybe many billions of years, we'll get close enough to where we're caught by that event horizon. Down the drain, baby! We need Mr. Petty! Right? Down the event horizon! Yes! It's like Chutes and Ladders, right? This is a picture of our event horizon. Only in the last 5 years, they were able, through, I think it might have been an infrared telescope or something, but anyways, to take a picture of 2 black holes. One of them was from another galaxy. This one is our baby. This is our Sagittarius A star. Sagittarius A star. Sagittarius. I should say alpha. Excuse me. Alpha. A lot of Greek in astronomy. And star. So I would call this an asterisk, but they say star. So Sagittarius Alpha Star is our black hole, our event horizon, our ultimate. So there are physical ultimates, just like there can be spiritual ultimates, like with religion. It is something beyond which everything is final, it seems. Usually. There might be exceptions that prove the rule, but we don't know of them yet. Yes. Yeah. The ultimate undergirds and gives complete, final meaning to existence. That's the purpose of the ultimate. To give total meaning to reality. Okay? And we saw this idea already in the concept of the Tao or Dharma. More so in Dharma and Tao than in, say, Religio or Threskeia. Religio and Threskeia seem more practical minded. Threskeia is, what you do for the gods. You worship them and stuff. Whereas Dharma and Tao is more like this idea of the ultimate. Because, did I put that? Yeah, so the ultimate deals with the real, what is reality, and so we can talk of ultimate reality. You see a definition there. It is a power, a force, an order, okay, that is believed to encompass the cosmos, to exist in it, and to give it final and lasting meaning. So religion seems to be dealing with ultimate reality. I just want to check something. I did set an alarm, but I want to make sure that okay, good. So I'll make sure that sometimes the phone can do it, has a mind of its own. So it is a power or a force. You could also say energy if you want to be more, natural science. Okay, that's fine. But it is ultimate. It's giving the final and lasting meaning to what is reality. And so because it includes everything, it is transcendent, even if it is in everything. Okay, in some religions, ultimate reality is completely transcendent. It has no connection or touch with the natural world at all. But in other religions, the ultimate reality is like one and the same as the natural world. Okay, it's part of it. Well, even if something is part of everything, that kind of still means it's transcendent because it's part of everything. It's extending, even if it's including everything, it's in everything. So you're just kind of changing the location. You can say it's transcendent in the sense that it's not part of everything. It just kind of is over everything. Or it's transcendent in the sense that everything is it and it is everything. So you end up saying the same thing in a way. But this is my definition of transcendence. The state of extending above or beyond something else. Okay, fine. Which, I give you the Latin there. What does it mean? Basically, to transcend simply means to climb over something. Like this wire here, if I do this, I have transcando. I have extended myself over it. I'm across it, trans, okay? And I climbed or stepped over. That's also there, yes? To step over it. And also, more conceptually and broadly, to surpass something, okay? To excel something, all right? But the basic meaning is this, And now I'm going to do the reverse of transcando. I'm going to go trans again. I'm going to go over it again. But I'm going to step over it again, but I'm not going to straddle it, right? So that's transcendence. Religions witness to the fact that there is a reality filled with beings, filled with places, that while somehow part of the world, are yet not really part of it. And so the Greeks and a lot of religions have this idea of mountains. Mountains are where the gods live. Why? Because they're high up. They're near the sky. Okay? And things that are high up, transcendent, okay, get the idea of transcendent, seem to be related to ultimate reality, which would be sometimes the gods. So, of course, the gods are part of that ultimate reality. They transcend. So they're not going to live below necessarily. They're not going to live with you. They're going to have houses up in the mountains. Native Americans, we call them American Indians, but Native Americans. I remember I was at Wild West City. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that place. It's kind of like an amusement. Well, it isn't kind of. It's an amusement park near where I live. It's a Western theme, so they have cowboys and you know what I'm talking about. So, and I've been there several times in my life. And I remember one time I went there. There was a talk given by a man who was Native American, and just during the talk, this was fascinating because I didn't realize this. I didn't know this, but he explained why bird feathers, are so important. He said sacred to a lot of Native American peoples, and you adorn yourselves with feathers, and not just you. A chief of the tribe might have a headdress with a lot of feathers, but also warriors, guys who are brave in battle. One of the reasons you want to be brave in battle is because you'll get rewarded not with a medal, but with a feather. And the number of feathers that you have on your body is an indication of how brave you are and how valuable you are to the tribe. Well, why feathers? Why are they considered so sacred? Because they come from the transcendent realm. They come from the sky. Birds are the only animal. See, Native Americans saw this. They were the only animal that could transcend from earth to the sky, where maybe not gods. I don't think a lot of Native American religions, from what I understand, had anything as clear as gods and goddesses, but spirits, a spiritual realm above, okay, this other realm, only birds could go up into it and then come back down. So if you could get one of their feathers, it was like you've touched this spiritual realm. And so the feathers were very important to their culture. Transcendent. The birds were able to enter into a transcendent realm. So even though this transcendent realm was still kind of seen as part of the world, you could climb a mountain and go see if the gods are up there, and maybe you saw them or maybe you didn't. But you could see the mountain over there. You could even climb it. Or it might not be part of the world at all. You might be thinking of some other transcendent realm that you can't see, but you know is out there somewhere. Heaven, nirvana. So it's the belief that there is some reality which transcends and yet interacts with the normal world. So for religion, there's a world beyond the natural or normal world. And that world has a reality and a meaning that the normal world just doesn't have in religion. And so this reality, this called supernormal reality, it's a different normal, you might say, is filled with a power and a meaningfulness that are only to be found in that realm of existence and is not found usually in the normal world. Okay? I mean, the Native American that was telling us this, he's talking about like eagles. He wasn't talking about like turkeys. Although I don't know. I have to ask someone and see if they ever wore turkey feathers. But what was important was that the eagles were the ones that could fly up into the sky. Not turkey. I mean, turkeys can fly somewhat, but they're not really flying up high into the atmosphere, fly high up into the sky. So that mattered. That was the difference. That these creatures, eagles, could enter that realm of existence that was beyond the normal world. It was super normal. And this super normal world that I'm talking about, it alone provides the final fulfillment for human beings. It is final, definitive. It is the end. It's the ultimate. And that's where religions are tending. That's what they're looking at or talking about. They're talking about something that is the end of all discussion. This is just what it is and what life is about, and that's it. Go and live your life with that knowledge, basically. There's nothing more to discover after it. It's different from the natural sciences, where biology, geology, astronomy, chemistry, there's always something more to discover, because our knowledge we have a limited knowledge, and the universe we live in is limited. So nothing's just the end of everything. There's something beyond it, something that affects it, something that created it. And so that's one of the great things about being physical, is that you can change and you can learn more stuff. But if something is ultimate, it's the end. That's it. The only option is to really just start living with that knowledge, living your life according to that knowledge. And that's what religions are doing. They're people living their lives according to what they believe to be the ultimate, the end. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. I mean, in a lot of religions, this ultimate is not a visible. I'll go back to that. This ultimate is not a visible reality. It's invisible to people. You can't see it physically. It's not perceivable directly. And you see that in the idea of the beyond. It is beyond. If it's beyond, then you can't really maybe see it or experience it in a normal way. And that's okay. I mean, sometimes hear people make, and I'm not trying to make an argument or debate on something, but it's something I hear, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but it just seems to be a bad argument when people will argue against religion based on the fact of seeing or not seeing. Maybe you've ever heard someone say, "Oh, I only believe in things I can see." religious person, and that's like the drop. Do people still say drop mic, or is that like 10 years ago? Mic drop. Shows you how out of it I am. But, you know, boom. But to me, that is like the worst argument that someone could make, because when I showed you our black hole on the previous slide, we can't see that. That picture had to be created from, as I said, using like infrared, different, because not all light is the same, all right? That we have light in this room that we can see, but there's a broad spectrum of light from X-rays to infrared to ultraviolet that we cannot see. Some animals can. I think there are some animals that the way their eyes and things have developed and evolved that they can see certain forms of light that we can't see. But we definitely cannot see like ultraviolet, X-ray, stuff like that. We can't see it. But we know it's there, and we can manipulate it, can use it. And that's what the astronomers did. They used it to then translate those forms of light energy into a form that they could make a picture out of, so that we could actually see the black hole that I mentioned from another galaxy, but also our black hole, Sagittarius. So is the black hole really there? We can't see it, but we know it's there. I'd say it is there. Someone asked me to stake my reputation, or maybe not my life, but my reputation and maybe money or something. Yeah, it's there. I would bet that it's there. But there ain't no way I'm going to see it. And I say it's absolute. There's no way we can see it. It's completely invisible to us unless we somehow develop and evolve over the next maybe million years or so eyes that can see in different bands of the light spectrum. We don't have physical eyes that can do that, which is why we have other things to compensate. Vive la science. Naturelle. So I don't like that argument very much. I'm not arguing necessarily that these things exist, that the various gods or invisible realities that people say exist in religion do actually exist. That's not my argument at all. I'm just arguing that I think the other argument, that necessarily because you cannot see or because something is an invisible realm, therefore it cannot exist. Not maybe the best argument. There are other arguments you could use, but I would not start out with that one. At least not anyone who knows about natural science. So it's generally this reality is not directly visible or perceivable, and it is considered to be an absolute reality that you cannot compare to. It is totalizing. There's nothing beyond its influence. It's the total reality. And as a reality, it is something, because it is so totalizing and so different, to totalize, to make everything, basically, to make it everything, to totalize. It is kind of set apart. It's not normal. It's not abnormal, but it's not part of normal reality. And I guess I'll get into, it's the sacred, and I guess I'll start getting into the sacred after our break. Should be right about now. Well, yeah, it's 2 minutes. So let's take our break now, take about 10 minutes, and come back, and I will get into the sacred, this idea of the sacred. Oh, wait a second. 6:48. When did the alarm go off? Thursday, September 15th, 6:40 p.m. Did not go off. Put on vibrate. I did not snooze the alarm. I did not. But I probably did that because... Okay, so 6:48 and so 6:50. So I'm gonna leave it out of my pocket. because it ain't gonna go off. Da-da-dee-dee. Huh? Oh, I got one named Zoe and another one named Sally. Yeah, Sally's the older one. Zoe's the baby. No, they're actually not. No, the one, her sister died, so we got her a friend, and they're frenemies. But they like each other for the most part, yeah. Yeah, Sally drove me here tonight. She's outside waiting. Yeah, so if you hear the horn going, just, yeah. Now you work. There we go. Okie dokie. Let me give it 1 or 2 minutes, and I'll start. All right. The sacred. The sacred. There's a definition for you. A state of mind by which one perceives a transcendent, enduring, and powerful order to the universe that is ultimately real or meaningful. My box here of myself. A little bit. Order in the universe, excuse me. And just, like I said this in the last meeting, I uploaded this PowerPoint to Blackboard just in case. What you could do, something that might be helpful is to print out the PowerPoint slides, and then you could use them to write notes on. And it might, if someone wants to write by hand, if you're doing it on the computer, there might be a way to do it also on the computer as well. But just so you could have your notes right there on the PowerPoint. But the PowerPoint is available, just so you know. Because I don't want people to waste time having to think they have to write down all these definitions and stuff. But the sacred, okay? The sacred, from Latin sacer, sacra, sacrum, a little bit as an adjective, sacer, according to what gender it is, masculine, feminine, or neuter. And what does it say? Dedicated, given over to a god or spirit. So right there, embedded, right inside the very word sacer in Latin is this idea of these otherworldly, non-normal beings we call gods or spirits. And the sacred deals with that. The sacred is a concept, is a word to describe that those beings and the reality that they inhabit. And actually, I could have if I think about it, under the Romans, I guess I could have put sacer as another way of describing religion other than religio, the sacred things, because they're kind of one and the same. So the sacred is a symbol, a concept for what is ultimately real and meaningful. And it is, of course, if it's ultimately really meaningful, as I told you, it is absolute, it is eternal, it has no comparison, there's nothing to compare it to, and it has ultimate power and value. Because this non-normal realm is so beyond everything, it is therefore, by definition, set apart from what is normal, what is the everyday reality. And religion is kind of used as a bridge, or to bridge, between normal reality and this non-normal reality called the sacred. What is a word? Is there a word for this non-normal, or excuse me, for normal reality? Well, yes, there is. If there's the sacred, well, what is the normal everyday reality called? It is called profane. Profane. And not profane in the usual sense that people think of, like, oh, he said, she said, a profanity, like a bad word or a curse word. That's not what it means. It just means what is the normal and everyday, those things which are not sacred. They are not intrinsically part of this ultimate reality. They are part of the regular world, which is not ultimate, which is limited, which can be compared to other things. It's not eternal. I mean, we are not eternal, I might say. We die. If you want evidence that we're not eternal, well, remember when you drive by a cemetery. That'll be me someday. Hopefully, hopefully, well, whatever, forget that, that's a stray thought. Let it fly away like a balloon into this cloud. Huh?
Is everything okay?
Oh, everything's fine. I'm coming back to myself. I took all my pills. So that which is not sacred. Now, I mean, that's not much of a definition. You're just saying, well, it's not X. Okay, fine. But to make it clearer, it's what's normal, basically. The profane is what is normal. What is the everyday life? Sacred is not normal. It's unusual, something that's unusual. And hence, there are certain feelings with something that's unusual. Feelings like maybe fear, of wanting to maybe move away from what's unusual, not to approach it. But then some people have the opposite reaction. They want to get closer. They want to get a good look. What does profane mean? Well, literally, it comes from two Latin words, pro and fanum. Pro means in front of or before something. Whether you say, if you're pro something, you're in favor of it, that's not what we use. Well, propose something, before, and that's what you do. You propose something, I place before you my idea that we will leave 20 minutes early. They are paying me, I don't want to get fired. Anyways, so before the fanum. Fanum is a Latin word for a sanctuary building, a little temple, a little shrine. So whatever goes on outside of this shrine is profane. It's in front of it. It's the normal everyday stuff. Buying, selling, cooking, working, playing, all that stuff. What goes on in the temple, that is sacer, that is sacred. That's different. That is unusual. And it has its own rules. Why did I show you a video of a football game? Because I wanted to ask about this kind of thing, Because you think about sports. Sports are kind of religious in that sense. They're sacred in that sense. You have a space where unusual things can happen that don't normally happen outside of it. Okay, only certain people can come on the field of play. Not just anybody. And there are certain things you can do on that field of play that you cannot do. I mean, if I want to come, running down the sidewalk and spearhead somebody and knock them over, I could do that. Well, not in soccer. You get a red card and you probably get suspended for like 10 games or something, and you can't head somebody. But they do it in the NFL, and then they wonder why they have a concussion problem. But anyways, easy solution. Take away the helmets. Take away the helmets and the pads. Nothing helps like pain. If a guy knows that he's against... Well, anyways, moving on, Mr. Dunn. But yeah, if I wanted to do that, I can't do that. That's assault. I'd be arrested. But you can do it in a certain rectangular area, and you can do it with a weapon too, because if I have a plastic and metal thing on my head and I do that to someone on the street, that's a weapon too. I would think they could, maybe they could get me to say it was more than just, if I just did it with my head, but if I'm wearing something like a helmet, maybe that's worse, because that could cause more damage because it's rigid. But in football you can, and that's not a problem. You can get into a fight in a hockey match, and a guy can give a roundhouse to another guy and knock him cold. Does he go to jail? Does he necessarily get sued? Sometimes it did happen once in the last 10 years where a guy did actually, I think they maybe even filed charges for a dirty hit a guy did in a hockey game. But mostly, no. I mean, the referees even let them fight. They're just there, they're skating around, and then, okay, the guy falls. All right, come on, guys, back to the game. So there are, I see, kind of a coalescence between sports and religion in some ways, and the sacred. There are certain things you can do and not do in a temple. It used to be that, you see this if you take a religious studies class with me, or they have like a world religions course, I would probably have one of the projects be to go out somewhere, or at least watch something on YouTube. But it'd be better if you could go somewhere, because then you're in the mix. You know what I'm saying? And you know what it's like. I mean, you can watch an Orthodox synagogue service on YouTube. But it's not the same thing when you go there and you're a woman and they tell you, okay, you have to sit over on that side in that corner. You can't sit amongst us. Or the same thing with a mosque. Women are going to sit on that side, and there's going to be a big curtain between us and the men. You're not even supposed to look around it at the men, nor are they supposed to look around it at you. And there you go. And everything's in Arabic, or everything's in Hebrew. Different experience, but it's a good one, I think, because you have that experience, which you can't really get the same effect if you're on YouTube or something. You experience the otherness. It's not normal. It's not what you experience when you go outside, where everyone just kind of walks around. You wear what you want, I mean, before I would say this, used to be this way, say, for example, in Catholic churches or stuff like that, but it's not that way anymore. It used to be, if you went to a Catholic church, it was very quiet. You might have the smell of incense, and people were supposed to dress a certain way, shirt and tie, at least maybe. Women would be almost fully, you certainly wouldn't bare your shoulders and stuff like that. Anything that could be deemed sexual. That a woman's shoulders are sexual, or my shoulders are sexual, culturally. That doesn't happen, But it would happen if you tried to go, as I said, to an Orthodox synagogue service, or if you went to a mosque. You would have to be dressed a certain way, male and female, or not dressed a certain way. Like you couldn't wear male or female, you couldn't wear shoes into the mosque. But if we went into an Orthodox synagogue, I would have to wear a kippah, a little hat on my head, a little, call it beanie when I was a kid, but they call it a kippah in Hebrew, or other a yarmulke. I'd have to wear that. A woman would not necessarily. In Orthodox synagogue, you have to wear a kippah or a yarmulke, but you would have to be fully veiled. Not normal. You might not do. Now, if you're an observant Jewish woman, then yes, you might be veiled, or a Muslim woman, you might be veiled all the time, and it doesn't matter. But if you're from another religion that doesn't do that, or you're not a religious person or whatever, that's not how you'd be walking down the street necessarily, unless, Taylor Swift were doing. And then everyone will be wearing veils. I'd be wearing a veil. I'd be high-stepping down the street. My Taylor Swift veil that I saw her wear. Because she's an influencer. I am easily influenced, Mrs. Storga. Yes. Astorga. Good. It's getting there. The sacred and the profane, that which is not sacred. Oh, turn the page. Oops. The sacred is therefore, I don't want to say therefore, but the sacred is dangerous. When you recognize the otherness of the sacred and you treat it as other, it is dangerous. The sacred, it kind of disrupts order and the order of reality. It makes things different. Things have to be done in a different way. There are different rules at stake. Different rules that are very, very foreign and maybe even offensive in our culture, not in other cultures. Again, this is not to offend. If you went to an Orthodox synagogue service and you were a woman, I'll bet you none of the men would shake your hand. Why? Why do you think? They would not touch you. Ms. Randazzo, sorry, I heard, what did someone...
No, just if you could re-ask the question.
Yes, if you went to an Orthodox synagogue service and you were female, even identified as female or whatever, as soon as the men found out that you were female, they would not touch you. Yes.
I'm assuming it's the same thing. So, you want to touch, like, the opposite sex out of respect and, like, modesty, like, if you're your husband or your wife, out of respect.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And if I say anything that is inaccurate or wrong, please correct me, because you are the expert, not me, please. And the same thing with any other religions. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, you certainly, Orthodox Jews have that same kind of thing that a man should not be seen in public with anyone except his wife, and certainly should never be alone with anyone but his wife. And a woman herself should not be alone with anyone but, say, her husband or brother, family member. Yes. That is part of the reason that you don't want to touch women. But also there's another reason, this is where it could be considered, and this is why I give the trigger warning, I'm not meaning any offense, but a specific issue with women that men don't have. Okay. Well, maybe. All right. I don't want to. But their blood is impure. Again, that's why I'm warning. But I want to give an example, because I said it can be offensive to not normal. Okay, it can be offensive to the normal way of doing things that people are not used to. But it's normal for them. Blood is impurity. To touch blood, to eat blood, in any way, shape, or form, even if you're not touching it directly, can make you ritually impure. It can make you are, the woman, interestingly enough, becomes sacred during that time, which means she is untouchable. She is in an unusual position, and so she has to be avoided. So if you go, also for the reason that you said, Ms. Rendazzo, which is, if you ain't my wife, I ain't, whatever. I'm a Jewish man and I'm not coming near you, because that's just prudence for them. But it's also prudent because you don't know what time of the month it is for the woman that you're, even the wife he would probably know, but for another woman, no. And Jewish women and Orthodox Jewish women also observe this. Like, they will not put out their hand to shake another man's hand, because they understand this in their community. So the sacred makes things not normal, and it is dangerous. It can be dangerous. You're dealing with the issues that are of high concern to people. And as I said, it disrupts order, because I remember I was reading on this website, Ask the Rabbi. And I've used the website as well. I've asked the rabbi myself for some stuff, because there's stuff I didn't know or wasn't clear about. And a woman asked, on this website, went on this blog and asked this rabbi, what do I do? I have a business interview. And I'm almost certain the guy's going to put out his hand to shake my hand. But, in this case, it wasn't what I was talking about. It was you were talking about, Ms. Rendazzo. It might not be appropriate for me to do that. What do I do? Because if I'm not going to do it, he might think I'm rude and I lose the job. And so she's dealing with a sacred issue. The sacred is very important to religion, just like with the ultimate and ultimate reality. And this guy, Peter Metcalf, well, I shouldn't say this guy. I'm talking about somebody else, Peter Connolly. This is Peter Metcalf, which is from the Dictionary of Anthropology. How do they describe it? Who would like to read that definition of the sacred from the Dictionary of Anthropology by Peter Metcalf? Yes, Ms. Asatunsik.
The sacred is a class of objects, events, and things that we define as the only reason was
Go ahead, please.
as an adjective, it refers to a quality of difference or being separate from anything something that appropriate with. In many cases, it implies a link to a supernatural order of existence.
Yes. So separate from, this idea of separation. And I already mentioned, for example, you go to a Jewish Orthodox synagogue, you go to a mosque, the separation might be quite physical. You might, the men might be in one room, the women will be in another room. Or they might be separated by a curtain. Or they might have to just have different seating areas. But why? Because you're in a sacred reality, and this idea of separation now. You're separating normal from the non-normal. The unusual from the normal. And the sacred is usually considered more profane. Is usually considered more important than the everyday. It's special. The sacred is special. Anyways, I don't know if there's anything more I want to say about that. And I like the fact that he does mention, this is a Dictionary of Anthropology, that, so they don't necessarily always, anthropology is kind of scientific in that sense that it's not theology, so it's not based on a faith or belief system. But I do like the fact that he acknowledges that the sacred implies for people a link to some kind of invisible order of existence. It's not just a cultural thing that people do. There's a reason, a very important reason why they're doing it. It matters to them. You might say, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters to them. It matters deeply. Because if you screw up the sacred, then, as I mentioned with Dharma before, if you screw it up, then the God might be angry. Or you might mess up the order you might bring disharmony and imbalance to the universe, which then has to be balanced. And usually that's not a good process. That usually involves death or suffering and bad things. So that's why you want to keep everything in the sacred in its right place and right order and do the right things. I think this is the guy I was referring to, not Peter Metcalf, but Peter Connolly. Just this little quote from him. Peter Connolly is a senior lecturer in religion at the Chichester Institute of Higher Education in the United Kingdom. I don't know if he's still living or with us, but I found this quote from him years ago, and I thought it was short and sweet and to the point. Chichester, just so you know how to spell it, the Chichester Institute of Higher Learning. The only really crucial element in religion is the belief in the sacred. When this is present, we have it, we have religion. When it is absent, we do not. Okay. And that's where I think we start to see the difference between something like an American football game and religion, because I told you before that there are similarities I can see there between football and between religion. Okay, I can see similarities, but what differentiates them, as Connolly says, is that it's not transcendent. Once the game is over, it's over. It's not ultimate. I guess going back to ultimate rather than transcendent, but it's not transcendent either. But it's not ultimate. When the game is over, it's over. Whoever won, won, and whoever lost, lost, and you move on. Okay, people might still remember the game and say, oh yeah, wasn't that a great game, and stuff like that. But no one's repeating every week the Super Bowl from last February now? Is the Super Bowl in February? It used to be in January. I forget. I'm out of the loop, people. Eventually the Super Bowl will be like in May or something. I don't know. And I won't even know. I'll be the last to know. But anyways, the Super Bowl happens, I think, in February for the NFL, the National Football League. It's not going on every week. You don't get a bunch of guys or a group of people, men, women, whatever, who come together every week and say, okay, we're going to reenact play by play, call by call, action by action, the whole 3-some-hour Super Bowl every week. Every week. Why would someone do that? There's no point to it. The game's over. It's not ultimate. It doesn't have that transcendent feel. It doesn't transcend. You move on. The season ends. The Super Bowl is the last game of the season, effectively. Season ends. It starts up again to a whole new season. And everything is 0-0-0. I mean, they don't continue it on like, oh, it's eternal, you know. We're still counting the stats and everything. No, you get everything 0. You know, the win-loss record and tie record is 0. The stats are 0, you know. Statistics, I should say. So the sacred, it's transcendent. When it's there, we have religion. When we have the sacred, when we have this non-normal thing that is ultimate, we have religion. Now, the sacred, as I said, it's dangerous, and it evokes a mixed, some might say ambivalent. The word ambivalent means it could go either way. It's not, I probably should have looked it up in the dictionary, get an etymology going, but I did not. Well, it might come from ambo, for to walk, so it could go either way. But I don't know for sure. It could go either way. It could be, there's a good aspect, but there's also a bad aspect, one might say. So the reaction people have to the sacred, and you see this in religion, is ambivalent. It's mixed. On the one hand, there's kind of an instinct that humans have to avoid it, to stay away from it. Don't go there. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't eat that. Okay? There's this instinct to stay away from it. Leave it alone. It's taboo. It's forbidden. On the other, there's an instinct to be attracted to it. You know, hey, let's all go down to that sacred tree, you know, where receive a blessing or something, where the spirits hang out. We'll receive blessings. Or let's make a pilgrimage to Mecca, yes? We'll go to our sacred city, and it will be, of course, God is present everywhere, but God will be present there in a special way and fulfill our obligations to Him. Okay? There's an attraction, you know? Even though there is kind of a sense of, I don't want to be here, you know? And I don't mean in the bad sense, like like now, like this is boring and I don't want to be here, so move it along, Dr. Dunn. No, I mean like, in a sense, like, can I be here? Am I allowed to be here? Am I in the right state to be here? You know? Because you never really stay in the presence of the sacred forever, at least not in this plane of existence, okay? You're there in a very, for a very, precise reason, and once that reason is over, you go. You leave the sacred. You leave it alone. So the sacred represents, it's ambiguous. It's an ambiguous domain, one might say, an ambiguous area of being at the same thing, holy, of these ideas of being holy and set apart, and that's really what holiness means. The basic meaning of holiness is something that's set apart, sacred. They're the same thing. Holy and sacred have the same root meaning. Things that are set apart, that are not normal. And to kind of go against the holy, or to transgress, one might say, to violate the holy is to defile it. Okay? So I was looking at my notes and wondering why I put that. So, people are in awe of the sacred. They're in awe of it. It overwhelms them in their feelings and their emotions and in their perceptions. And because of that, because it is so overwhelming, people want to stop it. It's kind of like when you've eaten too much ice cream or something, or you've eaten too much of a food, and at a certain point you start, even as good as it tastes when you're putting it in your mouth, at a certain point it doesn't taste as irrelevant because you're feeling sick. You've overeaten it. It's the same thing kind of with the sacred. You're in awe of it, it overwhelms you, but it can be too much, and you want to get out of its presence. So, contact with the sacred must be controlled. Human beings figured out that there were certain unusual aspects of human existence that were so weird, so unusual, that they needed to be controlled. You could only really deal with them in a controlled environment. And this is wise. And this is logical. Religion is logical too. It might not have the same logic as the natural sciences, but it is logical. I mean, if you're going to go to a nuclear reactor, like you want to take a day visit there just to see what's going on, and then leave with another eye protruding out of your head, an eye grows out of the side of your head after you leave. Yeah. No, but I'm sure it's generally safe. Anyways, but if you go to a I'm gonna ride this horse, baby. If you go to like a nuclear plant and you see where the stuff is, the rods, the irradiated metals and stuff like that are producing energy and stuff like that, heat energy. They're there and they're dangerous. Yes, very dangerous. I mean, if the water, you need tons of water to keep the rods cool so they don't overheat, because if they overheat, then the reaction, the atoms are being, various atoms are knocking into each other and stuff like that, and it's creating heat. But if it gets out of control, then you can have what they say is a meltdown, and it can vaporize things. Turn things into pure energy immediately, okay? Which is not a good situation, certainly not for us. I don't know if Mother Earth cares. Mother or the planet cares. It's just part of reality. But for us, it's not good for human life or other forms of life, because we'd just be vaporized. What was my point? My point is that, yes, it's very, very dangerous, but it's safe. People work there every day. It's safe because they keep it in a controlled environment. They know what to do, what procedures to follow, so that they don't have a meltdown, they don't have a vaporization, they do it. Religion, so just like the natural sciences, religion is like that. Religion is kind of that, whatchamacallit, I could say stopgap, but that protective thing that protects human beings from the sacred and allows them to still interact with it. It controls the sacred and allows us to interact with it. And how human beings relate to that reality is called religion. Now, before I move on, I just want to make sure where I am. Oh, okay, good. I talked about definitions, and monothetic definitions and polythetic. Monothetic definitions, you're basically giving one single idea that religion is X. Okay. Polythetic, you're looking for a whole constellation of things, a whole number of things, which taken together, mostly are reflective of this thing called religion. Not all of them might be present, but if most of them are, you know you probably have religion and you don't have sports, you don't have politics, you don't have literature, you don't have something else, but you have this thing called religion. What would be monothetic? Well, I say that what defines religion monothetically, if I had to do it, ultimacy I mentioned before, and that word ultimacy, I think that ultimacy, if I had to boil it down to one word, I think that is a good word, the ultimate, because religion wants to tell you ultimate truth, okay? What is how the reality is, the truth, ultimate existence, like if there's an afterlife. If there's a before life, it tells you that are those things. Ultimate beings, if there are gods and goddesses. So that idea of ultimate seems to me to recur, and that could be a monothetic way of defining religion. Religion is about ultimacy, what is absolutely ultimate and beyond which there's nothing else. But I would say that what defines religion is a belief in some higher reality, and I said ultimate reality. The definition here or no? I'm not going to go there yet. That's the end. And human beings participate and control that reality in some way. Human beings are trying to participate in that reality, but also to control that reality in some way. That's kind of what I think religion is. Ultimate reality, and that people are trying to control it and participate in it. Another word for this ultimate reality is the sacred. Okay, it is a sacred reality. It's something that is, because it is so beyond, it is set apart. Now, what would a polythetic definition look like? And I think there are several things that I would point out about what makes religion, or what needs to be part of a religion for it to be religious. How many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think I have 7. That's as many as I came up with. Is that me? Or is that somebody else? No, I have 8, actually. That's not me, is it? Had to have been me, because it came from the thing, right? Huh. Wonder what happened. Weird. No, it wasn't me. I don't think so. I didn't hear it coming from there. Okay, so religion, at its most polythetic, first of all, religion is anthropological. I'll write these on the board, because I didn't put them on the PowerPoint. I apologize. I did have a PowerPoint slide, a bunch of slides, but I didn't transfer them over when I made the PowerPoint. I apologize. They remain in the original. It's just too bad, because when I say it's anthropological, I think that I had a picture of Randy Macho Man Savage. Oh, well. In fact, I think I'll write them down. Rather than doing it one at a time, I'll write them down now. Anthropological. Anthropological. Two. 3 intentional. 4 empirical, holistic. And I don't think these are in any particular order. I'm right there with you. Structured. Maybe it was 8. And finally, it is sacred. We ended up. Okay. Anthropological, okay? In other words, religion is something that humans do. Anthropos, yes? So religion is something that humans do. And the study of religion is really a study of human beings. Okay, so there's no religion without human beings. I mean, that makes sense. And I think that was mentioned in the article from, defining religion and religious identity in the book, The World's Religion and Figures, which hopefully you've read by now. We have to remember that, yes, religion is a concept, but it is a concept dealing with human beings. There's no religion without it, okay? We can talk about it conceptually, but where the rubber hits the road, people are doing things. They're saying they believe things, etc. So it's anthropological. It's something that humans do. It's also communal. There is no religion, quote, religion of one, okay? I mean, there are always exceptions that prove the rule. Yes, someone could walk up to me and say, well, you're wrong, Mr. Dunn, I have this very specific religion that only I believe in and nobody else. Oh, okay, fine. You proved your point, okay? But I'd say that you prove that you're the exception, that religion is generally communal and social. It involves not just a person, it's people. It's groups of people doing things and believing things as a group together. It is also intentional. By intentional, I mean people intend it. It's deliberate. They're doing it on purpose. Okay? Yes, can people just kind of go through the motions? Of course, with anything, without thinking or really believing in something, but they do it anyways? Yeah. But even if someone goes to church because he's dragged there by his parents, still, person had to make an intention to get dressed, get up, walk into the church, stay in the church. I mean, there are all certain points where the person could simply say, I'm not doing this! Get up and run out! Or throw a fit! Do something, Just don't go. Don't get dressed. Even though the person doesn't want to go. So it's intentional. It's done on purpose. Humans somehow know when they are or need to act religiously, even if they don't call it that, even if they haven't considered it, okay? Yes, you can have a culture where, they don't talk about religion. They don't have the word. You could say, well, they don't have a word for religions. Okay, fine. But there are certain moments, it appears, where they know that they have to do something different. They know that they have to say a prayer, or they know they have to bring out some magical device and use it, okay? Think of an example I was thinking of were a bunch of fishermen in Papua New Guinea. Generally, they didn't sit around talking about theology all day. They weren't reading from their catechisms or from sacred books. No, I mean, but they had to go out and fish to eat, to feed their families. So when the tribesmen went out to fish, okay, they would go out, and again, it's not like they were always talking about their gods, but when they got far enough out into the ocean where they were really alone, and I mean, if you've ever been like in a canoe or something and you're out in a huge body of water and you can't see anything anymore, it's just the horizon of the ocean curving over the horizon. You can't see, and it's like you're overwhelmed by this blue that you can't see into, so you don't know what's beneath you and what might be coming for you. That's when the magic started. That's when the prayers started. This was from an anthropologist. I'm not going to give you his name because I don't want to get too deep into it, but this was a story from an anthropologist. He tells about their use of the practice of religion within this tribal group he was studying in Papua New Guinea. Nothing about religion for the most part, except when there were certain really unusual situations. Then what you could call totems came out, or talismans, the magical articles came out to control nature, to appeal to the spirit of the sea or their god or whatever. So it's intentional. People know that even if they don't have a word for it, that they're doing things, and they know that there's a difference between going to a physician. A person knows there's a difference between going to a physician to maybe get some medication or antibiotic for a medical issue, and going to a priest to have him apply oil to your head for healing. And your motives are kind of like the same. Your motive is to go to the physician to find healing. Your motive to going to the priest is to find healing. But one is religious and one is not, and you know it, and you intend it that way. There's a reason why you're going to the priest as well, or for some people, only going to the clergyman, the Christian Scientists. You only go to the religious practitioner for the most. Well, they also do go to physicians as well. That's not totally true that they will never go, but it's intentional. It's deliberate. Religion is done on purpose, even if people don't have a word for it. It is committed. It is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle. Okay. I have a little thing here that I wrote, but religions usually expect some involvement. This is there's a difference here in the modern world, because people will now say, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And what they mean by that usually is, I don't want to be, or I'm not tied down or committed to any one particular belief system. Maybe a person believes in a lot of belief systems. They take a little bit from Hinduism, a little bit from Christianity, a little bit from just natural sciences, and they put them all together in the blender, Hey, spiritual, but I'm not religious. But even when a person says, I'm spiritual and I'm not religious, they try to be, it's almost like they're trying to say, well, I don't belong to religion, But in a way, they're already admitting that religion means commitment. It means a lifestyle. You're just not following whatever that commitment or lifestyle is. But religions usually expect some sort of involvement. Religion is empirical. The word empirical comes from, and we'll talk about empirical later on in the course when I talk about how religion is studied. But empirical means experience. It just means experience. So, done on purpose. Purpose. Empirical just means experience. You experience it. You can see it. You can do it. You can act on it. Okay, you've experienced it. And religion is experiential. It's empirical. It involves the physical. It does involve, even though it might believe in an invisible world, it does involve visible, physical, material aspects that can be viewed and studied. There are rituals, writings, books, sacred buildings. You can go see their buildings that they have and stuff like that. So it is experiential. It's not just an invisible realm. It is holistic, and this word holistic, I don't know why we just spell it with, I don't know why I don't spell it with the W on the front, because it comes from Greek. Well, it comes from the Greek holos, I guess that's why, which means whole. Same language family, Indo-European language family, so holos and whole sound almost the same, mean exactly the same, the whole shebang. So religion is the whole. It is organic, which means that, what does it mean? I got to figure out my own bullet points here. That belief and practice matter. It's not just all in the head. It's not just all in the heart. Both of them go together. Religion involves not just saying I believe certain things, but also that I act on those beliefs. So, for example, we talk about, a person who's a good Christian or something like that. Well, what does that mean? It means that they're holistic. Not that they necessarily, well, hopefully they're good people as well, but that they've got it all together. They're integrating the whole religion. It's not just saying, oh yeah, I'm a Christian or I was raised a Christian, but I'm also trying to practice some of the beliefs that this religion tells me I should believe in, how I should act. So they belief and practice interpenetrate. They relate to each other. Someone who stops believing usually stops practicing. Eventually, I would imagine. I mean, you could go on for a while running on fumes, saying, all right, I really don't believe any of this, but yeah, I'll get up every Sunday morning and come, or Saturday morning and come, or Friday evening and come. But I don't believe any of it. Okay, fine, but I would assume that eventually the tank is empty and you have to just be real with yourself and say, I'm not going to practice this anymore because I stopped believing. Some religions, like Christianity and Islam, have a very high sense of this obligation of belief and practice. They're very high in the holism department when we talk about being holistic. Some religions are very holistic. Christianity, Islam. Christianity, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? The only Lord and Savior, which means you have to put away everything else. You have to give everything in your life to Jesus. Do you believe that there is one God and that Muhammad is his only and his last prophet? Yes. It means you're not following other prophets and other... Yes?
I don't want to be like too nitpicky.
No, go ahead. Yes, excellent, thank you. Yes, you are correct. There have been prophets before him. He is, I should say, the seal of the prophets. He's the last... Would you say he's the best of the prophets, or...
I think he's a prophet that is really important, but I think there's influence that I might favor others.
Okay, but would you say that he got the message correct? He's the one who got it the most correct, the way that God wanted it to be?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, well, so thank you for volunteering that. I appreciate it. But that has to be believed, right? I mean, I can't be, now they mentioned in the article here, the other, again from the World's Religion and Figures, about double belonging. You probably can't be a Buddhist and a Muslim. No. I mean, the same, although there are some people who try to say that they can be Buddhist and Christian and Hindu and Christian and stuff like that. I've heard, okay, fine. Maybe in the, well, not really. At least not if you're for the Catholic Church, that I know. But maybe for certain other versions of Christianity. So my point is that some religions take this holistic structure very seriously. It really is everything. Others are maybe not so much. Say, for example, Hinduism. Hinduism, there's a great diversity of belief and practice. There are some central things that are believed, but not, you can still kind of follow your own path in a way and still be considered technically Hindu, especially if you are Indian, because Hindu means India. So if you are from India, then by definition you're already a Hindu. Okay, it is structured. It is structured. Religion is structured. Not all parts of the structure are the same. I mean, there are great parts to the structure, and there might be a lot of little parts. Some are foundational. Some form the bedrock, the foundation for the rest that comes up. Okay, and some parts of the structure support others, but there is a structure to religion. Oftentimes a very complicated structure. Religions are not usually simple things. They're not just even if they're not very old. I mean, I find religions like Scientology or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which you can kind of call Mormons, but they don't want to be called that anymore. So Okay, they're not very old movements. I mean, Scientology was founded in around maybe the 1950s, and the Latter-day Saint movement started around the 1820s, 1830s. And I mentioned Christian Science before, which started in the later 1800s. Fascinating, very complicated, even though they're not very old. Now imagine you take a religion like Hinduism, which goes back so far that we don't know when it started. Okay, you have to go back into the prehistoric record to start, thinking, is this Hinduism? Is it so old? Same thing you could say with Judaism. Yeah, it is, whatchamacallit, it is, why did I mention, what's my point? Sun structure, it's very complicated. Religions are complicated, complex things. And finally, my point, sacred, which I've already talked about, so I don't need to beat a dead horse. Nevertheless, religion involves a plane, a realm, an area of existence that is somehow set apart from the natural, normal world. It is a part of this world in a certain way, but it's not really a part of it actually. It's not part of the normal human world. So, of course, not all, now this is a polythetic thing. Okay, not all religions will have all of this in the same degree. Some religions expect a lot of commitment. Some religions take up your whole life. Okay, some have really complex structures. Some are maybe simpler, you could say. They all deal with something that's not normal. I think you'd have to, the sacred, and they're all anthropological. Those are two, I think, things that definitely have to be there, certainly. But of course, not all religions are the same. Just like not all games are the same. Not all sports are the same. Some are team sports. Some are individual sports. In some sports, you have to score points. In some sports, it has nothing to do with points. It has to do with how far you can jump or how long you can run or not run. How short you can run. You can run faster than others. And yet they're all sports. Not all music is the same. There are tons of genres of music or art. Not all political systems are the same. Okay, Queen Elizabeth II headed a monarchy, technically constitutional monarchy. Canada is a monarchy. I mean, Canada is technically, it's a democracy, yes, but it's a monarchy. But we don't have that. We have a republic. Okay, we have a totally different form of, well, I shouldn't say totally different, but a very different form of system, and yet both are politics. And we recognize them as politics. We recognize them as political, even though we don't have a queen, we don't have a king, or dukes, or an aristocracy. We have a different form of government. There are characteristics like the ones above here, that when we see them, most of them together, we know that we have something religious and that it's not politics or sports or music. Okay, and I'll save my definition for the next class. That's my alarm. So good to see you all. I'll see you next week.